And I would say this with all due respect, that when Nigerians are talking about think tank, it is not to say that we are looking for a substitute for a team that is being led by certain people in government or the ministries and so on. But it's to say that, look, everywhere in the world, you have think tanks and technical teams and groups who bring in specific experiences and expertise to serve as a backup. It exists everywhere in the world. In Japan, in Singapore, in South Korea, in the US, everywhere in the world you often find these people that constitute think tank. It's not a substitute for government economic team. It's not a substitute, or it's not going to overtake or take the job description and responsibility of people that constitute the economic team of government.
All right.
But you often
Professor,
always have this.
Let me quickly.
Even within the requisite,
let's go slightly into the issue of how we get here, and the issue and the spine of our nation, who 56 years. Out of that 56 years, Nigeria has had 29 years of those years in the hands of the military, and 27 and it hands being ruled by the civilian rule. And from 1960 to 66, we had a civilian rule. And of course, 66, there was a military coup. And up until 79, Aguiyin Rosi, Yakubu Gowon, Murtala Muhammad, and Olusegun Obasanjo came into power. 79, conducted an election which brought in Shehu Shagari. And of course, at the end of that, there was another military coup. Of course, the incumbent president, then when the head of state who took over power. Up until 1999, until now, we returned to civilian rule. But a whole lot of people have said Nigeria has huge potentials. But how did we get here, for example, some of the challenges that we find ourselves? A lot of question on why we came together as a people, the question of our marriage, how legitimate is it? Is that really the problem of Nigeria?
Well, our history did not start in 1960. It started in 1900. Indeed, you may say 1861. But let me say this as a student of history, that there's virtually no country in the world that came together through some voluntaristic means, particularly multi-ethnic and ethnically segmented societies and countries. There's none. So the whole idea has been that in the past we've concentrated on the way to build nations or nation-building project and forgot the concept of how to build a nation-state, and therefore the Nigerian project. We believe that our diversity is a weakness, whereas we forgot the slogan, unity in diversity. There's nothing intrinsically wrong with having diversity, multiculturalism, and so on and so on. Key countries that have made progress in the world are very diverse. US, UK, Singapore, Malaysia, name them. They are diverse, but the truth is that they turn their diversity into sense of strength. The elementary or rudimentary principle of federalism talks about coordinate bodies, unevenness in development, the willingness to want to come together, and therefore also talks about the principle of subsidiarity among various layers and tiers of government. The issue is to find and strike a precarious balance and see how each of these layers can key in an organic manner. I hear people talk about so-called true federalism and all that. I don't know what it means as a student of political science, because what I know is that a country can either be federal, quasi-federal, confederal, or unitary. So true federalism is a political cliche and sloganeering by politicians that has been propagandized and mainstreamed by mainstream media. And now it has become the dominant or grand narrative of Nigerians who are now thinking about how the fault lines of this society and why we have not developed is to be found through the single line story and single line narrative that we are not able to develop because we are diverse people, we are uneven people. But the point we need to know is that we are not one people. I mean, we are not the same people, but we are one people. To talk about the oneness and unity of Nigeria is not to say that we are the same people. Oneness is not the same thing as sameness. So anywhere you go, even in ethnic and mono-ethnic societies, like Rwanda and Burundi and so on, Norway and all that. Go, they still have some of these challenges. In 1974 April, Rwanda had to go to war, genocidal war that led to the death of over 800,000 people in less than 3 months. In religion, in whatever, ethnic group, language, everything, they're almost homogeneous. But yet, they still went to war. Over 800,000 were lost. But we are not posing the critical questions, in my view. And ask yourself, what were the best years of this country? They were between 1960 and 66. And I want to say with all due difference that the reason for the successes achieved by the regions in 1960-66 was not so much because they had autonomy, as it were, over their resources and to develop at their own pace, but it was fundamentally and essentially because they had visionary leaders, committed leaders, and people who had plans and were committed to achieving those plans.
All right, Professor Momo, what would you then say is majorly Nigeria's problem?
The major problem in this country is the fact that we do not understand the structure of our political economy and how it has inhibited our growth and development. We think that it is by decentralizing power alone that we are going to achieve development. I disagree with that. We may decentralize more powers to other tiers of government and so on, but if we do not relook the nature and of the character of the rentier state and the pattern of accumulation and the nature of the political elite, which has not transformed into a political class, and the nature of the compradorized class that is not a national bourgeoisie, who are the parasites and vampires of this country, and who have seen governance and government as business, and where they should only go and reap from, and so on. We are not addressing anything. Government and development are things that you must address in tandem. Development is no longer on the agenda of this country today. We are in the 21st century, but what have subsequent governments in this country since 1986 tried to address? Poverty management, poverty reduction, poverty alleviation. Millennium Development Goals that were adopted by the United Nations in 2000, that ran out in 2015 and gave birth to Sustainable Development Goals, was all principled on how to manage and alleviate poverty. Let us cut infant mortality, maternal mortality by half, illiteracy by half, and so forth and so on.
Professor, I'd like to pause you just for a moment, because it's getting more interesting. We're talking about solutions when we return about Nigeria. That's in a moment. Join us again.